Welcome to Bible Believers Fellowship and part one of our two-part study of the daughter of Jairus from Mark chapter 5, verses 35 through 43. In our previous study, we had seen Jairus approach the Lord when on his way to the house of Jairus, the woman with the issue of blood entered the story. We now return our attention to Jairus and his deathly ill daughter and the grace and mercy of our Lord Jesus Christ. We want to offer this reminder that these messages are available online at our website, kjvbiblebelievers.com. So stay tuned at the end and we will also give additional contact information. But that website again is kjvbiblebelievers.com, where you will find literally hundreds of free audio and video messages. And we now begin part one of this two-part study of the daughter of Jairus from Mark chapter 5, verses 35 through 43. Started last week with verses 21 to 24. Verse 21, it said, "When Jesus was passed over again by ship unto the other side, much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet." And we discussed that a little bit, that's a pretty fascinating thing to think about. You have this guy who is the ruler of the synagogue. And that would be like the mayor of your city in that time, but coming into your presence, and he's got the suit and tie on. Everybody like, look at that. Now, you have to be honest with you, I don't even know who the mayor is right now. So it might be a man or woman. They come walking in the room, I'd be like, "Who's that?" I'd be the dumb guy, you know. Jenny, I always said she should walk around with one of those T-shirts. "I'm with stupid," you know, because I'm clueless about that stuff. But anyway, just think of someone you would recognize who's kind of up there in the social ladder. And everybody always whispers. Psh. Today, they make little gods, small g, out of politicians and actors and athletes. And you can imagine, even though he's kind of fallen in the eyes of a lot of people, Tiger Woods, he comes out to the memorial here, and they say it's still incredible, the crowd that gathers just to look at him, and the chance to talk to him. And Tiger is a self-professed Buddhist. It would be wonderful to see Tiger walk into a church and fall on his knees. Of course, he can fall on his knees anywhere. But that's this kind of thing. Jesus is walking down the road, and here comes Tiger Woods. "Hey, look, there's Tiger Woods." And then he falls at Jesus' feet. Isn't he Buddhist? Yeah. That's the way people are thinking of Jairus here. What's this ruler of the synagogue falling at Jesus' feet? And we talked about, just to give you the setting, it's on the west coast of the Sea of Galilee. It's back over into the area west of Jordan is where this is all happening. And Jairus is basically abandoning his social status, falling at Jesus' feet like he did. And here's why. Verse 23, read that with me. "And besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live." And as I said last week, in our last study, I'm thankful that I've never had to say those words. But you can put yourself in his shoes. Anyone you love dearly, that moment when you really think that this is it. I've known people who have had loved ones who've been sick for a decade or more. But then when that moment comes where they're called in and told, "Hey, this is really it," that changes everything. Turns your world upside down. Suddenly things you thought were important are no longer important. I remember the moment whenever I've shared this before, that we were living in Mount Healthy, Ohio. And this was in 1999, March 1999. And an F4 tornado comes at us. Well, we had moved there on a short notice and had to move into, guess what? A trailer. And I don't believe in luck, but man, I decided, well, with short notice, let's go ahead and live in a trailer, sign a 6-month lease, and then we'll move into something nicer. And during that 6-month period, that place gets hit with the only F4 tornado on record. Well, we're in this place, and I grabbed the girls, and they were so small I could just grab them, put my arms around them. And it is so loud that screaming at the top of my lungs, you can't even hear your own voice. That's what it's like in a tornado. The whole trailer is shaking. It's like an earthquake. I thought we're dead. I just thought, this is it. I hope this is painless. Seriously, that's what was going through my mind. And I was just praying, I was praying, Lord, if we're going to die, just make it painless. That's what I prayed. And thankfully, this massive tornado went just over our trailer park and landed in a neighborhood just next to us. These were like $1 million homes. The people in there had heard this thing coming without sirens or anything. They just were awakened by the noise of it and hit shelter, and nobody was killed. If that thing had hit our trailer park, it would have set records killing people. This was a huge trailer park. At that moment, nothing else mattered to me. Nothing. I was dealing with some really heavy stuff at that time. And at that moment, couldn't care less. And this is the kind of moment that Jairus has. And what's he do? He falls at Jesus' feet. I'm not being super spiritual or anything by telling you that's exactly what we should do. You hit these kind of moments, that's when you just fall at Jesus' feet. That's all you can do. And so we see Jairus with what we could call desperation and tenderness. Both in those words. My little daughter. She's at the point of death. And then we started in verse 24 where it says, and Jesus went with him. And then from that point, we kind of stopped the story with Jairus and we looked at this other character who came into the story, which was the woman with the issue of blood. And we went verse by verse through that. And I'm not going to repeat it. But after Jesus speaks to her, she touches his garment, she's healed, and then Jesus turns and looks to her and says, daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. Now, before we move on, I just want to comment that she's already felt that she was healed. But notice Jesus still says, go in peace and be whole of thy plague. In other words, she was healed permanently. Whereas a lot of today's healings, they are healed at the moment that they're in front of the preacher at the big faith healing thing. They feel that they've been healed. They'll be pronounced healed. And then they'll still die of whatever it was they had or go home and it comes back. There have been people who've said, talking about using the word back, the back pain will be gone. And it'll be gone for sometimes days or weeks after they see one of these faith healers. But then all of a sudden, the back pain is back. That's not how Jesus did it. When Jesus healed somebody, they were whole permanently. And that's what happened with this lady. We imagine this ruler, this Jairus, had to think, oh, this is great. I mean, he's asked for his daughter who's near the point of death for healing, and now he sees this woman, all she did was touch the hem of his garment, and she's healed, and he's pronounced her whole permanently. So you think he had to come from here, and he probably had come maybe about midway emotionally because now Jesus is going to his house, but now it had to spike, man. He had to be thinking, oh, this is awesome. And then verse 35, while he, Jesus, yet spake, there came the ruler of the synagogue's house. Let me rephrase it. There came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further? Don't miss a couple of things in there. First of all, like I said, he spiked wow, he just healed this woman. And just as the thought is crossing his mind, Jesus is still speaking to the woman with the issue of blood. He crashes. Your daughter's dead. Boom. The bottom falls out. Notice that the people who came from his house, why troublest thou the master, capital M, any further? And evidently, here Jairus is the ruler of the synagogue, but he's teaching his house, not just his family, but his whole, everybody in his employ about Jesus. And so this guy was a serious believer. He wasn't just reaching out in desperation, wanting God to heal his daughter, although he was desperate. He was reaching out to someone he had faith in. He truly believed. Problem again with a lot of these folks who have turned to the faith healers and everything, they have nothing to do with Jesus, and then all of a sudden when they're sick, they want healed. And because they don't know Jesus and they don't know his word, then in desperation they turn to some circus clown. That's what happens. And they cough up their money. And they get took. Well, in this case, we're not dealing with that. We're dealing with someone who knows Jesus. He's taught his house to the point that they recognize Jesus. And so you see this desperation to hope, boom, to devastation. I'd have to think that most of the people who voted for Obama feel that way. The reason they voted for Obama was because a lot of people were just desperate. Bush had left this country in a mess, but the whole mortgage thing and the crash that was taking place, they had already done one $500 billion stimulus then under the Republicans. Then the Democrats come in, they want $1 trillion stimulus. It was desperation. And the best the Republicans had to offer was John McCain. So out of desperation, they clench their fist onto the garment. I mean, literally called him the one, treated him like the Messiah. But see, the difference between man-made messiahs and the Messiah is that man-made messiahs leave you with the devastation. The Messiah, Jesus, doesn't leave you there. And that's the difference. I mean, tell me the politician who's ever been able to keep his word. Name him. I was just telling Bill, I mean, I kind of sort of a fan of Ronald Reagan for different reasons. I have some problems with some of the things he did, but as far as presidents go, you know, I have to give him credit. But when he left office, things weren't, you know, perfect, I mean, by any stretch. They were better than they were 8 years ago. And then he was succeeded by George H.W., and things kind of went back into sort of a malaise, and that's why he was defeated when he ran for re-election. But there's not been a politician. Some people try to hold on to JFK and say, boy, if he hadn't been shot. He was... I mean, the more we know about him, the less you should respect the guy to begin with. And there's no politician, no Messiah brought by man. The New Age movement's been trying to bring in messiahs for years. They got this guy named, they call Lord Maitreya, that they claim is out there, and they keep promising he's going to show himself and do miracles and everything, and it just never happens. I mean, that started in the 80s. Full-page ads in newspapers saying, he has arrived, this New Age Messiah, and he just never turns out to be anything. Name your other gurus, and you know, the Beatles were following that guru, and that didn't work out too well for them. No. You know, you name them.
There's always compromise with those guys, and that's really one of the places where good is wrong. They're willing to compromise on things like that, but with Jesus, he never compromises. The truth's the truth.
And he leaves them in this state of devastation. That's where name your guru, name your man-made Messiah. That's where they leave them. Where did Jim Jones leave people? Where did David Koresh leave people? Where is Oprah leaving people? Where is her Messiah is Eckhart Tolle? And he's left her devastated. She's followed him, and now her empire's crumbling. On and on it goes. One after the other. They choose some man-made Messiah, some man-made guru, and they leave you with the devastation. And folks, this is life. This is life. If you try to take life by the palms of your own hands and make things happen, over and over and over, you'll be left with devastation. As a matter of fact, even as a follower of Jesus Christ and you doing what's right, you will continue to see most of what's around you end up in devastation because people are people. And that's just the way it is. I know it would sound better if I were to join the Osteen crowd and say, you know, God just wants to be good to you. He wants you to be happy. That's all. Just be happy. Come on now, everybody. Happy, 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 happy all the time. Come on. I mean, that's what they sing. That's all they talk about. Every message you turn them on week after week, it's the same thing. God's going to be good to you. Your miracle's about to happen. You know, every week. I don't even if I believed that stuff, I'd get tired of hearing it every week.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a broken record. Just want to go, you know, and get a new record. Frisbee. And it's also not reality. I'm sitting there listening to this stuff and I'm thinking, you know, I know all kinds of people who follow those gurus. And their lives are a wreck. All these people who've been following these preachers who tell them if you give me $1,000, God will bless you 100-fold. They've never got a $100,000 check in the mail. They're still in debt. They're still struggling. They're still going on. But they keep hoping and it's like people who go to the casinos, people who play the lottery. They're still dirt poor. We had a conversation a few weeks ago when that big super mega whatever, it's people won like 200 million or something like that. And it's like, yeah, how many people? There's a few people who won. Yeah, 3 people, 3 winners, 3 tickets that won. And everybody's like, yeah, well, there's 3 people. Yeah, but there was 300 million suckers. That's just a legalized pyramid scheme. You know what a pyramid scheme is? You have a pyramid, you have somebody at the top, and everybody else is paying upward. It works out pretty good if you're at the top of that pyramid. The rest of the suckers at the bottom of the pyramid are all flowing up and they don't get anywhere. I know, I've been there. I wasn't on the top either. This is back in the early 90s. No one ever told me about the pyramid scheme thing, and I show up to sell something. I think it was like, it wasn't Amway, but it's one of those type of things where it was like selling detergent you never heard of, and cleaners and soaps and all this stuff. And I got a big box in the mail, you know. And every month I was going to get my box. But then I was to sign up. I really wasn't supposed to try to sell this stuff. I was supposed to sign up other people to sell it. And it was like the more people that I signed up, and then they signed up and they signed up more, I got a cut. Pyramid scheme. But I didn't know. I'd never heard of it. So I'm thinking, one of the things I did that kind of put a red flag was I tried to use the detergent and stuff. It was stunk. I mean, it was terrible. It didn't clean anything. Didn't work. Smelled weird. Put the deodorant on, and by lunchtime, I'm like, is that me? You know, I don't even think they even tried to make it work. It was just like a store, what they call a front. I never made any money, but I know some people who did. They were at the top of that pyramid. Well, you know, that's just the way life is. The kids are starting to learn it. I'm sure, but I talked to all of you enough to know how many times you feel like you're doing the right thing and things just don't work out. I mean, I hope you're thinking clearly right now, but some of you have all done this, looking around, everybody's done the right thing, and yet things have crumbled. The lesson out of that isn't to give up. The lesson out of that is to realize that this world, this life, is not where you're supposed to put your hope. Yes, you can fight and struggle and put an entire lifetime into something and watch it crumble. And it may not be anything you did. But the lesson of it is, don't put your hope in those things. That's what Jesus was saying. Store your treasures up in heaven, where rust cannot corrupt and moth. What's the word? I always get that mixed up. I have the moth rusting and that kind of thing. But in other words, whatever you put up there, you leave it down here, it'll rust. buy a brand new car and love it, and then next thing you know, you back up and and it doesn't matter what it is. Buy your new house and something goes wrong, or you lose your job. You know, we've got people going through that. So just as a reminder, is when you see this in Scripture over and over, don't just pass by it. Read it. Understand that this is real life we're reading about here. It's really what we're going to deal with. Peter, that's why he wrote in 1 Peter 4:12, "Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial, which might try you." No. That's a dogmatic statement. Think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened unto you. That's why Peter talked like that. It's coming. It's coming. Don't look for people who will just try to put you into a haze where you live in this cloud, you know, where nothing bad will ever happen. Oh, don't claim that. That's what the Word of Faith people tell you. Oh, don't claim that. Yeah, you might as well claim it. It's coming. And everyone we know who preaches that nonsense, we see it time after time. It hits them, doesn't it? Fiery trial after fiery trial. You can confess it until you're blue in the face. It ain't going to change the fact. Trials are coming. That's life. Jairus is dealing with that sort of situation. And so in verse 36, read that with me. As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he saith unto the ruler of the synagogue, Be not afraid, only believe. Now again, here you have this emotional roller coaster going on with Jairus, and then this, you know, hope to devastation, and now he's been given a little more hope again. He says, Be not afraid, only believe. Well, he believes in Jesus. He believes. But you remember the one who said, I believe, help thou my unbelief. You see, you are a believer here today. Everyone in here is professed to be a believer. Don't think that you're not if there comes a time where you have doubt. The reason you have that is because you're not glorified yet. As wonderful as you all look, as wonderful as you all are, you're not glorified yet. Your brain is still fallen. Your body is still under the curse. Life is hard. It'll hit you right in the face sometimes. And it is normal for you to have that, whether it's doubt, you want to call it, or just a lack of real confidence, or just a feeling of despair and giving up. That's normal. And Jesus knew that Jairus was thinking that. Jairus didn't say, well, forget this. This guy's a bum. Obviously, he's not the real Messiah, or he'd known this before we ever started walking toward home. That's not how he responded. But even though he was remaining quiet and silent, Jesus knew he was human. Where is it that Jesus said that the men were I believe, if I remember right, they were being very complimentary, and Jesus said he didn't pay attention to what they're saying because he knew what was in man. You remember that? Well, this is the same sort of thing. It's not a knock on Jairus. It's humanity. And he knew that what now Jairus is struggling with internally. And he says, Be not afraid, only believe. Now again, he doesn't tell him to have faith in his faith. He's talking about himself. He's looking eyeball to eyeball, and he says, don't be afraid, believe. Now, you and I don't point at ourselves. We say, don't be afraid, believe. You can be an encouragement to somebody with those words. Yeah, how many times have you been in a situation where you just didn't know what to say? And people say the dumbest things when there's situations. You can just look at somebody and say, you know what? Don't let this get to you. Don't be fearful. Just believe in the Lord. Just believe. That's all you have to say to people. Don't try too hard. People try so hard to be an encouragement, they come up with things. Just speak it simply. And of course, be an encouragement by telling them you'll pray for them. We sing the song, we probably should have sang it beforehand, but only trust Him, only trust Him, only trust Him now. He will save you, He will save you, He will save you now. That's it. Not a profound poetic phrase or verse, but yet profound. He will save you. Only trust Him. He will save you. Now, how many times we sing that? We're just singing it. But it's real. It should be our motto. What do you think? What do you think is going to bring you through life? Because you're a hard worker, you're good looking, got everything going for you. No. I'm going to get through this life by the grace of God. Amen? Only trust Him. He will save you. And so verse 37, this is interesting. Read that with me. And He suffered no man to follow Him save Peter and James and John, the brother of James. He, at this point, stops the mob and even 9 of the 12 and goes on with just 3. These are referred a lot of times to as the 3 because there are numerous times in the Mount of Transfiguration and other places where He only took these 3 with Him. Why? Well, because He wanted to get rid of the crowd for Jairus' sake, I believe. But He also wanted, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, to let a thing be established. See, Jesus always went by the law. And so He takes 3 eyewitnesses. And as I mentioned, they're called the 3 because you see that on numerous occasions. When He went on the Mount of Transfiguration, He didn't have to have those 3 there. And it's comical if you read it because they kind of, if they just sat there silently, it would have been okay. But Peter's like, oh, this is good that we're here. Let's build 3 tabernacles, one for, and Jesus basically said, Peter, go sit down. That's not what the purpose of you being here is. What was the purpose? Well, Mark, we believe, got his information for this gospel from Peter. Peter wrote 2 epistles and actually referred to that moment on the Mount of Transfiguration. So the reason for them to be there was to be eyewitnesses. And that's the reason for the 3 coming along for this event with Jairus. So we come to verse 38. Read that with me. And he cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and seeth the tumult, and them that wept and wailed greatly. We have to end part 1 of our study right here of the daughter of Jairus, Mark chapter 5, verses 35 through 43. Be sure to watch or listen to part 2, which we will have available on our website at kjvbiblebelievers.com. You may get in touch with us by clicking the Contact Us button at kjvbiblebelievers.com, or you can write to us at Bible Believers Fellowship, P.O. Box 662, Worthington, Ohio 43085. That address again is P.O. Box 662, Worthington, Ohio 43085. We do hope you will continue to study God's infallible book with us, and that you will tell others about these Bible studies and our website ministry. I am Pastor Greg of Bible Believers Fellowship, and I thank you for listening.